Welcome back. It's 6:47 as we get ready to get things rolling this morning. Futures are pointing up after yesterday's rout. The Dow is expected to open up about 130 points this morning. It's a small consolation after being down 700, but nonetheless, getting a little bit of a reflex bounce today. We're probably not done with this sell-off yet. I would expect over the course of the next, the rest of this week and probably into next week, that we've got some more downside risk. The markets are beginning to get oversold, which suggests that we could get a decent bounce here. Very likely, whatever bounce we get will be one you'll want to sell into, particularly as we move into summer, particularly as we find out, because again, a lot of these tariffs that have all been put into place don't take effect till June the 1st, which means they really won't show up for another month or two before they actually start impacting consumers and it start to impact the economy. So this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Just because you had tariffs yesterday announced doesn't mean they get put into place yesterday, so forth and so on. So this takes time to work its way through. So we may get a little bit of a relief rally just from the standpoint that, kind of the news works its way through the system. But again, we'll start to see the impacts over the next few months. So it's very likely that, again, we may continue to see more consolidation in the markets, particularly as we move in the summer months, some downside risk. So just kind of pay attention to that. The economic data is going to be what is most at risk. So, again, as we kind of look at some of the bump in the economic data we saw in the first quarter, which was primarily due to inventory builds and net imports versus exports, which suggested a weaker consumer. Despite the fact we had a decent uptick in the first quarter, a lot of it was illusory. So we're going to see a lot of that work out over the course of the next couple of quarters. So we're going to see some weaker economic data coming through the pipeline, and the markets are going to start trying to figure out what exactly that all means. Also, yesterday, the yield curve reinverted because of what's happening, which also puts pressure on credit markets as well. So, again, just things you need to pay attention to. We talk a lot about individuals, trying to make ends meet. And I thought there was this really interesting, Katie Hill wrote a really interesting article for MarketWatch talking about the millennials and their, kind of their inability to save. Her opening paragraph was, millennials spend more time on social media than older generations. People ages 25 to 34 spend 141 minutes per day on social media. So about 2.5 hours. Versus 105 minutes a day for 35 to 44. And that could be hurting both their finances and mental health. And I thought it was an interesting statement that she made, because the survey that was taken, about 50% of the respondents said that their spending habits are directly affected by their social media use. In other words, this shouldn't be surprising, by the way, because when you're on social media and you're getting bombarded with ads to buy this or to buy that, and again, it's about impulse control. And today, we just kind of point and click and things kind of show up next day. So we've got this immediate gratification. Interesting byline. Walmart, and we've talked about this for a while, Walmart, which has logistical stores everywhere, are beginning to ramp up for same-day delivery. So you order from Walmart.com, they're going to deliver it same day to your house. Not bad. Amazon, of course, just recently announced they're going to one-day delivery on Prime, because we all want it faster. I don't want to wait 2 whole days for my stuff I ordered. I really need it tomorrow, right? And with Walmart, I want it today. So it's this lack of ability to delay gratification. And so not surprising that when millennials and Gen Xers, et cetera, are using social media, they're being influenced by the immediacy of getting stuff they want. Plus, they see their friends taking vacations, and they or supposed vacations, or they see their friends standing out in front of a car or whatever it is, and it looks like their friends are doing great. So, they've got to go do it too. Well, all that's happening is everybody's just getting deeper and deeper in debt to try to keep up with everybody else. One of the things that we did, and I still carry, I'm old fashioned. I still carry cash in my wallet. I know. Right? I think I'm one of the last guys on the planet that pays cash for something. But the reason I pay cash for stuff is because it's different than actually using a debit card. When you whip out a debit card, you run it through the machine, and there's really no impact, right? You don't really see the money movement, so it's easy to overspend stuff. It's like my old story about I don't shop at Target. And it's not a political thing with Target. It's because when I walk into Target, it always costs me as soon as I walk in, it's $100, right? I know when I walk into Target, I just spent $100 as soon as I walk through the door. Because it's just all this stuff. I go, oh, I need that. No, I don't need that. But that's what it is. But if I take cash with me, I know that I've only got a finite amount of cash. And when I see it actually coming out of my wallet, I can curtail spending. It's just the way I do it. But there's all kinds of tricks to managing spending and managing risk. And again, the financial education aspect is something we didn't teach our kids well. Most of our kids live in a bubble. It's this immediate gratification. They grew up in a much softer environment. My wife and I have these constant conversations because I grew up with a father that was, every Saturday was clean the house, mow the yard, wash all the cars, weed, whatever it was. I mean, Saturday was Labor Day in our house every weekend. And it wasn't a holiday. It was Labor Day. But, we all had responsibilities, right? We had chores, we had responsibilities, and if we wanted money, we had to go get the lawnmower out and go mow the neighbor's yards or, go wash the neighbor's cars, whatever it was. We had to work to make our money. Our kids growing up today, we don't want them to do that because we don't want them roaming around the neighborhoods because they might get snatched or whatever it is. We've got all these excuses. So our kids have grown up watching us as parents make other financial decisions, not necessarily good ones. There's an interesting article out today talking about one of the upcoming services is to hire somebody to come to your house to potty train your children. Yeah, I'm not kidding. So we've now got apps to, people to come walk your dogs, people, landscapers to come do your yard, house cleaners to come clean your house. You can now order meals and have them delivered to your house so you don't actually have to cook. And now we've got people showing up to actually help you with the parenting aspect. So, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, right? I mean, we've moved into a society where through technology, we can have the comforts of life and have other people do all the stuff we don't want to do. It's great. The only question is, can you afford it? And the obvious answer to that is no, because when we take a look at most millennials, they're heavily indebted. The average American, we've talked about statistics over and over again. Average American can't, make ends meet. They're living with about a $3,200 annual debt that they pick up just to try to make ends meet. And a lot of this just simply comes down to the fact of that we don't delay gratification. We've got to have everything we want right now. We can't save for it. We have to drive, when you start talking about pickup trucks, I drive a truck. But we start talking about pickup trucks that cost $80,000. Or I saw a new Mercedes out yesterday. They were advertising it. $120,000 for a Mercedes. I mean, it's a house.
You don't have a car loan, you have a mortgage.
Yeah, well, it is. And and I'm not saying, look, if you have the expendable cash flow to afford that kind of a car, great. That's awesome. And there's a lot of people that made a lot of money in the country, because of capitalism, and you go for it, man. That's awesome. For me, I buy used cars. And Brent drives one that's 900 years old. But, the point is that, we have to make some financial decisions. We have to between, what we want today and what we, what is it that we need? Do we need a vehicle that gets us from point A to point B? Or do we need a vehicle that gives us status in life, right? What's more important? But these are the decisions that we have been inundated with through social media, through television, through commercials, and even through the financial system. Because the financial system, I remember one day I was coming to work, and this was, back in 1998, 1999, before the crisis and the dot-com crash. And I remember driving to work and there was an advertisement from Wells Fargo. And they simply said, hey, you want to go to Disneyland? Charge it. Well, that's great. But this is inherent to the problem. Sure, charge it. I'll pay for it. Have it today, pay for it later attitude is what's led to a lot of the financial problems that we have in the country. And again, the issue now becomes the amount of debt that we're carrying, both at the personal as well as the corporate levels. And and what low interest rates have done to exacerbate that situation. Because with low interest rates, we can afford more, right? We can buy a car that is $80,000 or $90,000. If we finance it for 8 years, guess what? I can get it for $300 a month or whatever it is, right? It's like, oh, I can afford it. I can afford a $500,000 house as long as interest rates remain low. And this is why we talked about the fact that when we saw interest rates in January of 2018 moving up towards 3%, everybody was like, oh, the bond bull market's over. Interest rates are now going up because of all these reasons. And I said, no, they're not, because as soon as interest rates hit that inflection point, the world stops. And we now know that 3.2% on the 10-year Treasury is that inflection point because housing stopped, auto sales stopped, and credit went under contraction. So we know that consumers can't afford very much in terms of an increase in rates because of the amount of debt that they carry, because we don't have the ability to delay gratification and to actually save money. So it's an interesting article. Katie Hill wrote it. It's on Market Watch if you want to read it, talking about, kind of this idea. But we'll be back tomorrow for the next edition of the Lance Roberts Show right here at realinvestmentadvice.com. Our blog posts are up, and make sure and click on the YouTube tab and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Today we release our podcast with Chris Kimball on the markets and money, and we'll be back tomorrow with more editions of Lance Roberts Show podcast right here at realinvestmentadvice.com. Have a great day.
You can get daily real investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet. Sign up for Lance's newsletter now at realinvestmentadvice.com.